welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Thanks so much for clicking. To my returning family, the Visionaries, thank you for your continuous love and support. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please feel at home. Have you had an opportunity to subscribe to the channel yet? If not, take a second, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to like and share. Africa is the richest continent in the world. It's rich with minerals and natural resources. So why is it that many African countries are barely getting by? The reality is, it's because Western countries and other countries around the globe are coming into Africa and exploiting the countries of their riches. The natural minerals and resources are leaving Africa. And the African youth are tired of watching this happen because as they see the minerals and resources leaving, they also see job opportunities and opportunities to prosper leaving alongside of it. I recently was watching some videos and came across one of the First Lady of Sierra Leone, as well as one from Julius Malema, talking on this very topic. I also heard Professor Jeffrey Sachs also talking on this topic, and I thought we could take a listen and come back and analyze. Let's take a listen.
One of the most fundamental corruptions of the social contract in human history is colonialism.
Yeah.
And it's that mechanism that some states have used to extract resources from other places, such as Sierra Leone. That deprives countries of the resources they need for government services, for education, for health. So I was hoping you could reflect a little bit on what those forces have done to Sierra Leone and what kind of accountability we might be able to think about, just to imagine a way forward from where we've begun now.
When you look at what Sierra Leone have to offer, when you come to our mineral resources, the kind of mineral resources we have in our country is enough to take care of everybody in that country. We should not have a single poor person in Sierra Leone. But unfortunately, we are not given the free will to make decisions on our own mineral resources. There's always Big Brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you. It's either they set you up with the opposition and they'll be supporting the opposition against you from the back, or they cause unnecessary chaos in your country so that you are not able to even govern your own people. They will do things to make you not to be functionable. And of course, any country that, every mining company that is in Sierra Leone today is owned by a foreigner. Every mining company. If it's not the Chinese, it's the American, it's the British. Our electricity, Bubuna, is run by the British. And we still don't have light. We're looking for light, electricity. If you don't have electricity, how can you talk about education? How can you talk about health facility? How can you talk about improving the infrastructure of your country? We don't have electricity. Now, do we actually even have proper water, pipe-borne water, so that our kids will not be sick? We don't have those facilities. Why? With all the minerals we have, there is a cap you put. Before my husband became the president of Sierra Leone was benefiting, they said, what's the word? 0.000.1%. What is that? Basically, a company can take as much as $100 million out of the country in terms of minerals, and then they can just give the country $10,000. Now, what will $10,000 do for our health system? What does $10,000 do for our educational system? And these are the things I believe that are stopping Africa from progressing. We don't have a say. The sense about us celebrating independence, I don't know why we celebrate independence, because we are not free. That is my own take. I'm not speaking also on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, nor am I speaking on behalf of His Excellency the President. I am speaking as Fatima, as a citizen of a country who believes that things need to change. Like I said, as a First Lady, I am not part of a government system. I am a wife of a president. So when I speak on behalf of the people, because I understand what the people are going through. At the end of the day, I'm not being paid salary. So, and I cannot be fired either. So that's the advantage. That's the advantage of being a first lady. But I believe that for Africa, what is happening in Africa today, it need to change, and it need to change now. There is no time like now, because for Sierra Leone, we now have a president who believes that we cannot wait for other people to come and develop us. We cannot wait for another country to come and prescribe how our country should be run or what we need in our country. You know, this divide and rule, if you're close to China, we will not come to your country. If you're close to America, we will not come to your country. I mean, the fight that is between England, Europe, America, China, Russia is not a Sierra Leone fight. That's not our problem. We're fighting for our daily bread. We're looking to have education, just like America. We're looking to have good health facility. Just like Europe, we're looking to have governance structure where one single person cannot be the dictator of a nation. That's what we're looking for. I am going around the world to see a country that sees Africa not as not just as an ally of what you'll be getting from us, but a country that sees Sierra Leone as partners and treat us with respect. You cannot be coming to our country and take everything that will make us develop, and then you still treat us as inferior people, as if we don't know what we're doing. I think that is wrong. You know, we're looking for partners that value us. People that will come to our country and say, you know what, this country has suffered enough. They need to grow. We were once the atom of Africa. Every country within sub-Saharan Africa used to come to Sierra Leone for our education. And today, what can we be proud of? We cannot talk about education in Sierra Leone because they've ruined that for us. Everything that has empowered Sierra Leone has been ruined. And now we have a leader who wants to fix everything. There is a problem. In Africa, you should not have a leader that is assertive, a leader that knows what his people want, a leader that wants to change what is happening. The moment you have that, it's everyone's target. And then they find reason to slow you down, they find reason to stop you, and they use that system of corruption. They use corrupt people, they use negative people, they use unpatriotic citizens to come after a government who is doing what is right for a system. I think we need to address those issues. Unfortunately, I don't know I'm very good at name calling. I will call your name. I don't care your status. I don't care who you are. I would name and shame you and let the whole country know you are one of them.
The United Nations and their specialized agencies, they all have governance structures that privilege some nations over others. I think we should be able to talk about that openly, and then we can talk about what to do about it.
One of the most serious issues I have with the United Nations is the fact that Africa is not part of the Security Council. We're talking about 54 countries, 50 Security Council.
And I'd observe also that no African country has its own executive director at the World Bank either.
No, unfortunately,
Yes.
we don't know how to manage money. Because if that is the perception since the beginning of, every time an African come forward for something that they have to be a decision maker for the world, not just Africa, it's just not possible.
I understand.
So what can I say? There must be a prescription somewhere that says, Africa, you are not good enough.
Well, it might be revolutionary, but I'm going to say it right here. Africans should be in charge of Africa.
I believe that also that Africans' issue can only be enhanced when Africans decide to do that. They should not allow another person to give them a prescription of how Africa should look like or what we need in our Africa, because we know what we need in our Africa. No one will know that better than us. And I think the UN should see Africa as partners. And the United Nations, definitely, you cannot have 7 countries vetoing everything. When it comes to Africa issue, it is those 7 countries who are the countries that are actually exploiting Africa? They're the ones who have the veto power to make decision on anything that has to do with Africa. So for me, I think that is wrong. And that is one thing the president of Sierra Leone has campaigned for. And this year, Sierra Leone is now a non-permanent member at the United Nations. But yet still, we don't have a veto power. But we're there. At least we are getting closer. And in these 2 years, our mission is to get the United Nations to see Africa not as one country. Because that's the mistake they do. When you say I'm from Africa, they say, oh, you're from Nigeria. I said, no, Nigeria is one country in Africa. You know, we have 54 countries in Africa. So see us as a continent that also, what we offer to the world, Europe does not have it. What Africa gives to the world, Europe don't have it, America don't have it, Asia don't have it. Because we are not mining in China, we are not doing any mining in America or mining in Europe. But they're doing it in every part of Africa. Not just Sierra Leone, go to Democratic Republic of Congo, go to Botswana, go to Angola, go everywhere there is mineral resources. It is the West and the Chinese who are there.
The French continue to micromanage all the countries that were their colonies except the recent liberated zones of Mali and Burkina Faso. Comrades, the French are brutal to a point that post-colonialism, they still make certain African countries to pay colonial tax to France. The French are brutal because some of their former colonies, their reserve banks are still in France. They are not in control of their own economy, yet they claim to have an independence. We, as progressive Pan-Africanists, must fully associate with and support all revolutionary actions of fighters who are removing puppets of French imperialism from political office and power. Not all these actions are revolutionary, because we must be careful of French-sponsored coups in Africa, where we think there is a revolution taking place in Guinea-Conakry, only to find that there is a French puppet who seeks to replace those who were there before. There is nothing revolutionary about the Guinea-Conakry coup. We ought to separate that there can never be a revolutionary coup that reinforces French imperialism on African soil. Anyone who comes into political office under the pretense that they are fighting a French puppet while knowing they are the French puppet themselves must be isolated by progressive Pan-Africanists. All French soldiers and military must leave the African continent, and this also should apply to neo-colonial military bases, including the African Command Center of the USA. We don't want the army of America, we don't want the army of France here, we don't want the army of anyone. We want African army on African soil. The Pan-Africanist Institute should therefore provide ideological, political, and technical weapons to all progressive forces of the African continent to fight against colonialism.
The EFF leader then said Africa needs one standing army to fight the wars sponsored by countries seeking to distract us with fighting so they can plunder our resources, before touching on greedy African dictators and the need to unite the continent against neocolonialism and exploitation.
We need African Central Bank. We need African Monetary Zone. We need African military combat, because these pockets of wars that are happening in Africa are not of our own making. They are sponsored wars so that those who continue to steal our resources can do so uninterrupted as we fight amongst ourselves. So we need a military, a common defense system, the African High Command that will ensure the stability and security of Africa. We equally need a binding African court to to deal with dictators who only exist in Africa to feed their friends and families. Those people must be prosecuted the African way. Seko Tore and Emperor Haile Selassie prophetically said that the failure to unite the African continent will give rise to the neo-colonialism and that African continent will perish. The revolutionary Pan-Africanist ideological and political diagnosis of the future was correct. The future is here. 50 years later, we know that we remain visitors in our own continent. We know that our resources benefit Euro-American than our own people. This is despite most African countries gaining independence from colonial rule since 1957. Massive, huge tracts of land, our mineral resources, our animals, our oceans are still owned and controlled by the colonial masters. There are no countries in the entire African continent that have gained full economic emancipation and independence. And this includes Ghana, which was the first to lead the road. Till to date, it can't claim that Africans in Ghana own the means of production. In 2016 report titled The New Colonialism reveals that there are 101 British companies listed on the London Stock Exchange that control an identified $1.5 trillion worth of resources in Africa in just 5 commodities: oil, gold, diamond, coal, and platinum. This is a very conservative figure since it includes resources listed by only some companies. Many companies do not provide the figures of the resources they control. And majority of these companies that do not tell us what they control and what they own in Africa are found in DRC, because they are the ones who fuel the divisions in DRC, they are the ones who fuel the fight in DRC, and they are stealing the resources of DRC because they know there is no proper accountability for such resources. The War on Want report on neo-colonialism further illustrates that the fact that these 101 companies control and own the following key resources on our continent: 6.6 billion barrels of oil, currently worth $276 billion. They control 79.5 million ounces of gold, worth $119 billion. They control 699.3 million carats of diamonds, worth $134 billion of $3.6 billion tons of coal, worth $216 billion, 287 million ounces of platinum, worth $305 billion. These are the numbers that reflect British neo-colonialism in the African continent. I've not spoken about what French companies are doing. The Portuguese continue to play a significant role in the economy of Mozambique and Angola. The French continue to micromanage all the countries that were their colonies, except the recent liberated zones of Mali and Burkina Faso. Our leaders like their colonizers more than us. That's why they always seek after anything that looks like colonizers. I don't know if you'll regret inviting me after this. But my problem is that I tell my truth as is. And I say it to authorities without fear or favor. We must teach our people that we are not beggars. When we ask for reparation, we are not asking for donation. We are asking for what was stolen from us to be returned so that we can prosper and become a better nation.
Julius Malema's blistering critique of French neocolonialism in Africa reflects a sentiment.
Well, the United States has always talked about defending democracy versus authoritarianism because there are elections in Taiwan where people vote for the leaders of the region. So it's a democracy. So the United States need to protect that place from being, unified by the mainland, which is not a democracy. That is all in the U.S.'s definition. Do you buy that kind of narrative? Do you think it is about that?
Not at all. The U.S. Foreign policy is based on a terrible and illegal idea called regime change. The U.S. Since 1947, since the National Security Act and the establishment of the CIA, has seen fit to determine who governs where around the world. Of course, it can't do this, but it tries to do this. There have been more than 80 U.S.-led regime change operations during this period. These are illegal, they are dangerous, and they are destabilizing. Sometimes they throw out democracies and bring in authoritarian governments. Sometimes they throw out authoritarian governments and bring in so-called democracies. But what they almost always do is make a complete mess, lead to war and instability. And the main point that I am emphasizing for U.S. foreign policy above all is the doctrine of non-intervention, which is a global legal doctrine under the UN Charter, which is that countries should not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, much less try to overthrow their governments. So this is the U.S. terrible habit, and it's completely documented now, dozens and dozens and dozens of cases. And it continues, and it's extremely dangerous. It has nothing to do with democracy per se. It has to do with the United States government trying to put in place governments that it thinks will support American interests.
It's clear after listening to these clips that colonization still exists in Africa. It's just taking on a different shape and form. As mentioned, the youth are tired of watching this. They feel their leaders are acting as puppets to the Western world, allowing the minerals and resources to leave the countries, as the people of Africa are not benefiting at all because these Western countries are giving a token amount in exchange for the resources. As they watch those jobs and opportunities leave, they're tired of watching their own people suffer, and they want it to stop today. They are taking a stand and speaking up on this very topic to let people know that they want the resources to be used for their own country's benefits, for them to grow the infrastructure there, the education, the healthcare, and the services they so desperately need. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on these clips and on this topic. Drop them in the comments below and let's have a conversation. But of course, don't forget to hit that notification button, like and share. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.